And it reads, "After this I looked, and behold, a door was opened in heaven. And the first voice which I heard was as it were of a trumpet talking with me, which said, Come up hither, and I will show thee things which must be hereafter. And immediately I was in the Spirit, and behold, a throne was set in heaven, and one sat on the throne. And he that sat was to look upon like a jasper and a sardine stone. And there was a rainbow round about the throne in sight, like unto an emerald. And round about the throne were 24 seats. Amen. And upon the seats I saw 24 elders sitting, clothed in white raiment, and they had on their heads crowns of gold. Yes, sir. Out of the throne proceeded lightnings and thunderings and voices. And there were 7 lamps of fire burning before the throne, which are the 7 spirits of God. Yeah. And before the throne there was a sea of glass like unto crystal. And in the midst of the throne and round about the throne were 4 living creatures, full of eyes before and behind. And the first living creature was like a lion, and the second creature was like a calf, and the third like creature had the face of a man, and the fourth was like a flying eagle. And the 4 living creatures had each of them 6 wings about him, and they were full of eyes within, and they rest not day and night, saying, Holy, 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 Lord God Almighty, which was and is to come. And when those living creatures give glory and honor and thanks to him that sat on the throne, who liveth forever and ever, the 24 elders fall down before him that sat on the throne, and worship him that liveth forever and ever, and cast their crowns before the throne, saying, Thou art worthy, O Lord, to receive glory and honor and power, for thou hast created all things, and for thy pleasure they are and were created. Amen. I want to talk today from the title, A Journey to Heaven. A Journey to Heaven. There's so many people have talked about life hereafter. You have those who talk that they've been to heaven and they've come back, and yet there's no change in how they act. We have biblical accounts of some who have been allowed to see or get a glimpse of glory in heaven. Ezekiel chapter 1, he was able to look into heaven and see the glories of heaven, the splendor, the majesty, the power of God on the throne. Isaiah chapter 6, Isaiah said, In the year the king Uzziah died, I saw also the Lord. He was high and lifted up, and his train filled the temple. He talked about the seraphim that flew or spoke back and forth to one another in praise unto God. But then there was something about Isaiah. In chapter 6, verse 5, he said, Woe is me, for I am undone. Because whenever you have an encounter where you see the living God, you're not going to be the same. And then there was Paul, who was transported. He said, I do not know. There was a man caught up to the 3rd heaven who was allowed to see things, but I couldn't even utter what I saw. There were those who got glimpses of glory, and yet they were not the same after they saw it. And everybody talking about heaven. And people want to go to heaven, but many don't want to go right now. They want to go a little later. Don't worry, I'm not getting a group to go up tonight. But if the Lord comes with you, you got to go. But when you look at this and you see what the positioning is of this chapter, both this chapter and chapter 5, what you see is you see the outline in full effect. This is the third part of the outline of the book of Revelation that's in chapter 1, verse 19, which reads, "Write the things which you have seen." That's chapter 1. That's the vision of Christ. And the things which are currently right now. That's chapters 2 and 3. That's the church age. And the things which shall be hereafter. That's the thing from chapters 4 through chapter 22. The end of the church age comes at the end of chapter 3. The tribulation period takes place from chapters 6 through 18, with the Lord returning in chapter 19, and the eternal state takes place in chapters 21 and 22. You see what God is showing right here. The positioning of chapters 4 and 5 are so pertinent to us that we need to look at where God puts them. First of all, when you look at what's happening in our world, even to this day, you look and people get bent out of shape, shook up, scared, and they're saying, "I've never seen anything like it." And you know what? We really haven't in our lifetime seen anything like this was happening. And yet people are trying to attribute what's happening to all kinds of strange phenomena. You have the environmentalists trying to say that global warming is causing the hurricanes and all of that stuff. You have other people talking about various things. The reason why people are saying it's Donald Trump that's causing these problems. And I got news for you. It's neither hurricanes nor is it just Donald Trump. It's all of us, lost mankind, that is causing these things to come into being. We must not try to put this on any one individual, but it's from the fall of man back in the Garden of Eden that set this in motion back then in the beginning. But God did not leave himself without a witness. In terms of, he said that the serpent, once Adam fell, and he gave the curse to the serpent. He said to the serpent, he said to Adam that the seed of the woman is going to crush the head of Satan, and Satan was going to bruise the Lord's heel. And when Christ was on the cross, that was the Lord making it possible for mankind to not stay in the shape that we were in. That he made a way out of no way to bind us together with God the Father. Jesus even said, "Let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me." He said, "In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you." He said, "I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you on myself. That where I am, there you may be also." Jesus said, "The way you know, and you shall go." All right, now I'll come back and get you. Thomas said, "Lord, we know not whither thou goest." He said, "How can we know the way?" Jesus said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father but by me." So when I think about that, I think about how God himself made it possible for us in order to live in a world that's in chaos all around us, and live like there's no chaos going on at all. Because my hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and his righteousness. When you think about that, all that's happening, this book, chapter 4, deals with the throne room in heaven. And the throne room in heaven is the control center of the universe. When you look at what Scripture says in Psalm 115 verse 3, "But our God is in the heavens, and he hath done whatsoever he pleases." Proverbs 21:1 says, "The king's heart is in the hands of the Lord, and as the rivers of water, he turns it wherever he wants to. Isaiah 46, 9 and 10 says, remember the former things of old, for I am God, and there is none else. I am God, and there is none like me, declaring the end from the beginning, and from ancient times of things that are not yet done, saying, my counsel shall stand, and I will do all my pleasure. I got news for you. There's not a human being alive that can thwart the plan of God. And so therefore, evil may look like it's prospering, but the hand of God is in control of that very thing. You don't hear me now. Oh, you don't hear what I'm saying to you right now. We get bent out of shape because we look at what's happening in the world. We get bent out of shape with politicians, but politicians have to bow to the will of God. Oh, don't mistake it. Don't be mistaken by the fact of what you see. Don't be mistaken when it looks like evil is prospering. Evil's not prospering, everybody. God is working everything out after the counsel of his own will. He's working his plan out. And he's giving us right now the opportunity to be children of God, to be the change agent in a culture that's decayed. He's telling us, you are the salt of the earth, and you are the light of the world. We're the change agent, and yet God is on his throne. This chapter right here lists 12 times the word throne. All right, in the King James Version, when you look at verses 4, it talks about, and around about the throne were 4 and 20 seats. Well, those two times it's mentioned there, that word is thrones also. But it's in a different light. It's in terms of the Lord promised those in the believers that we will reign and rule with him. Yeah. So we too will be sitting on thrones ruling. But this chapter deals with the fact, along with chapter 5, that God is on the throne. And whenever anyone sits on a throne, they are governing and ruling and controlling. What you do about God will determine how calm you are and what you think about everything else, what you know about God. Some of us don't know too much about God. Because the first time something happened, we start acting like we don't know him. It's all right. Blaming everything on something else. It's sin. Satan energizes this stuff. We turn flesh and blood battles into flesh and blood battles. And Satan throws a rock, hides his hand, and we start fighting each other. I know I'm right. I'm right. I'm not just right. I'm not bragging. I'm right because I see it happening all the time. He causes us. The Bible says, love your enemies. Does not the Bible say that? But we think it don't pertain to us. We say, no, it says love our enemies. That could be hard, but the Lord didn't say you had to do it on your own. You've been born again, haven't you? And when you've been born again, you have the ability because the Holy Spirit resides in you. So what do we have here? We have a God sitting on the throne, ruling and super ruling and overruling what's happening on earth. He's ruling right now. As a matter of fact, when he set the world in its place, the Bible says that he upholds all things by the word of his power. Yes, sir. He's upholding everything because the earth is not slowed down in its rotation. That's right. Since he put it in order. That's all right. Job 26 and 7 says he takes the earth and hangs it on nothing. Right. Since you got so many smart people in the world, what's the string holding up the earth? How come the earth, if it's hanging on nothing, how come it hasn't gone out into the outer reaches of the universe? Because God says, stay right there. Ever since I've been born, February 15, 1962, for some of you that's ancient, but there's some born way before me. And yet, I've never seen a season not come. For winter follows fall, and fall follows winter, summer, and then summer follows spring, and spring follows winter, and the cycle goes every year. Why? Because the one sitting on the throne telling the seasons when to come and when to go. January through December has been my whole life for 55 years. Each day goes by, God says, go by, and a new day starts. Never have we missed a day in my 55 years. Because why? The one on the throne is controlling every single day that comes about. 365 days a year, 12 months a year. I don't know how many minutes, hours, seconds, or whatever, but all I know is from January 1, 12 o'clock a.m. 2017, the next second was 1 second after it started, and it's kept going. Why? Because God said it's going to continue until I say stop. Because why? He's on the throne. And with him on the throne, nothing will ever not be what he said it should be. Now, he may have some permissive ways where he lets things go on, but don't think that he's ever out of control of what's going on. So when you see the contrast between chapters 2 and 3 to chapter 4, when it looks like the church is at its lowest point in verses 14 through 22, all of a sudden the bright hope comes when you look at verse 1 of chapter 4. Here's what John saw. He said, after this, he said, I look after these things. He said, there's a new scene that's coming to be. The new scene is after I looked at these things in the past. When I looked at the church age and what was happening, he said, I looked and noticed his astonishment. He said, and behold, that's a marker or a prompter of attention. It caught his eye because he was looking at what Christ was giving him as he was dictating letters to the churches. And when he finished the last verse in verse 22 of chapter 3, he that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit said unto the churches. He said, after this, I looked and behold, notice what he saw. He said, a door was opened in heaven. And the first voice which I heard was as it were of a trumpet talking with me, which said, and so the first thing he heard, well, he looked up and he saw a door open in heaven. That ought to give you some help. That ought to give you some hope. And the reason why I give you some help and hope is that it means that in order to, for us as believers, the Bible says that there are 12 gates to the heavenly city. Right? 3 gates on the east, 3 gates on the west, 3 gates on the north, 3 gates on the south. And it says that all who enter in will go through them gates. Now, the legend says, and people have come up with St. Peter going to check your pass to see if you get in. I'm so glad Peter has nothing to do with me getting in. See, that was already done some time ago when I asked the Lord to come into my life and believe on Him as Lord and Savior and surrendered my life to Him. I've already got heaven. It's waiting for me to get there. People say, I'm trying to make it in. Well, I've already made it in, just not there present yet. And I am doing my best trying to live for Christ to represent Him on earth. But heaven is my home. My address is now in heaven also. I got a temporary address, 6255 Skyline Drive, but that house is decaying. It's rotting. I looked at some stuff I got to do to it, and I'm spending money to get it done. But yet my other house, not a house not named our hand, eternal in the heaven. When you think about that and what God is doing, when He said, I looked and behold, a door was opened in heaven. And the first thing what he heard, the first voice which I heard was as it were of a trumpet talking with me. Now notice what John uses a lot in the book of Revelation he uses "it was like" or "as it were." And you'll see that a lot because those were the only words he could only use for his vocabulary. So when he heard the voice as of a trumpet, he was saying, well, I'm hearing somebody talk to me, but it sounds like a trumpet blowing. But there's some symbolic significance to that. Understand that trumpets were used for two purposes. In the law first mentioned, in the book of Exodus, chapter 19, a trumpet was used to blow the horn for gathering. And then also a trumpet was used for a war cry. So when you look at this, and when you look at what this chapter represents, God on the throne, he's getting ready to take back the title deed of the earth from those who think they own the earth. And yet he says, oh no, it's not yours, it's mine. I let you think you got it, but you don't. So he's gathering us together, and yet he's sounding the war cry because he's going to deal with things during the tribulation period. And so it's a war trumpet symbolically that John heard. And notice it said this trumpet was talking with me and which said, come up here. He gives them a command. John was in the spirit. And yet he was transported spiritually into heaven. All right? Physically still on the Isle of Patmos, but spiritually transported into heaven. And he said to John, he said, as the trumpet was talking with him, he said, come up here and I will show you. I will make known to you the things which must. You can't leave that word must out. That word means that it is necessary for you to know what's going to happen hereafter. So in other words, he's saying to us, he said, yes, things may look chaotic on earth. Things may be what you may think is out of control, but I have not lost control of anything. Because I'm getting ready to do some things that when I do it, you're going to know that I did it. It is no coincidence what's going to happen. All of the global warming people, I'm going to make it hot on the earth. When I cause some things to happen cataclysmic, he said, I'm going to make it hot. It's not because you use aerosol. It's not because you use styrofoam cups. He said, I'm the one that's going to make it hot. And you're going to see. And he's telling us that I'm in control of things. And the wickedness is out there. Don't worry. I got it under control. We say, boy, I've never seen anything this crazy and this wicked before. If you live in the tribulation, you will see something like that. But I have no intention. Anybody have any intention of being there during the tribulation? Even if you don't know Jesus, you're going to say, no, you don't want to be during the tribulation. Because it's a time known as Jacob's trouble. A time that no one has ever seen in terms of the wickedness that happens on this earth. The Lord is removing his restraint, and he slowly seems to be doing that now. And when the Antichrist comes, it's what the phrase Katie bar the door. Because it's going to be a time like you and I have never seen before. And so he said, these things I'm going to show you, which must be hereafter. Now, that's divine determination that God says, I'm working everything out after the counsel of my own will, on my own time plan. And trust me, he gives us, and that's why no one should try to set dates. Don't try to set dates. Somebody tried that last week on the 23rd. You may not have heard, but there's somebody who predicted some years ago that the rapture was supposed to take place on the 23rd. I'm sorry, I see a lot of believers in this room, and God wouldn't lie to us. All right, God wouldn't lie to us. That means we should have been gone if the rapture took place. But notice this, I didn't hear nothing about no cars driving with nobody in them. I didn't see nothing about no planes flying without pilots. All I saw was business as usual. Because God is in control of time. And his time, he operates when he's going to carry things out. All right? And so he goes on and he says, and immediately, after the astonishment of what he saw, a door open and heard, the sound of the voice, the sound of a trumpet, and then the voice telling him, I'm going to show you things which must be hereafter. We now begin to see the glory of God on the throne. Understand this. We talk about heaven, We sing at the end of a homegoing celebration. If anybody asks you, where do I go? Where do I go? Soon. And then we sing, I'm going up yonder. And everybody get happy as they march around the castle. I know, and they sing as they march around. I'm going up yonder. And people on the old rags go show me a good job on there. They look so natural. No, they don't. And my point is, I'm not trying to make fun of anything. I'm just saying, we make heaven like it's just, like I oftentimes say, a step up from earth. I'm sorry, but when you read this and you start seeing this, when God is there sitting on the throne, and what the brilliance and the glory and the majesty comes off from Him, then you can't just be, I'm going up yonder. He's like, hey, I'm going over Matthias' house. I'm going over Deacon James Johnson's house, or Greg Drummond's house, or Jeff and Crystal's house. No, that's not what it is. To go there would be truly, when we leave here, is going to truly be a transforming event. Because what we know here is embedded in our mind. As soon as we strike Zion, our whole mind will change from what we knew down here in terms of the wickedness, the wretchedness, the vileness, the sickness, the degradation, and all of that will change. As I said not too long ago, you and I will never think a sinful thought.
That's right.
It's hard to imagine, isn't it? You and I will never, ever hear a sinful word.
That's all right.
You and I will never, ever experience sickness again.
That's all right.
You and I will see clearly with no glasses on.
That's all right.
We will never experience any deformities, frailties, or anything like that. We will see colors the way they were meant to be seen. The vividness and the majesty behind what God has created. And John has done his best to try to give us a picture in his own words of what he saw. That's why Paul said, I saw things that can't even be uttered. Man, that's something, right? So he says, and immediately I was in the spirit, and behold, prompt of attention, a throne was set. Right?
Yeah.
So, when he talks about a throne that deals with the position of the throne. And that word is in the imperfect tense, which looks at an action that's been completed in the past, but yet it has existing results that keep on happening right now. In other words, the throne has always been there. And it was not just placed there at the time John saw it.
All right.
The Lord wants us to see that God Himself has always existed.
Yeah.
And anyone who's always existed is in control of everything that He created.
Yeah.
You guys hear me on that?
Yeah.
So no created entity has the ability to overpower God Almighty.
All right.
Oh, God's grace is so amazing because sometimes we've gotten mad at God. Tell the truth. When He didn't do what we wanted Him to do when we wanted Him to do it. Oh, we got disappointed at God. God, don't you see me? Don't you know what I'm going through?
Yeah.
I know some people have. Let's tell the truth. All right? Why you let me go through this, Lord? Pretty soon you guys are going to start telling the truth. All right? We have. And God's grace and mercy is so good. Because again, if He was like us, and you ask me that question, you're going to make it hard for the person. And so He says a throne was set. The throne gives the picture of one on the throne ruling and reigning. As I said a minute ago, super ruling and overruling. The one determining what will be and what won't be. That's what a throne, anyone sits on the throne, has complete sovereign authority over everything else that they are over And so with God on the throne, and this is how we have to start viewing him more so now that he's on the throne. He was on the throne when Hurricane was ready to take off. As soon as Hurricane Harvey did what it did, it said, Irma, go. Irma went. Then he told the earthquake in Mexico City, shake. Go 8.1 and shake. Shake until I tell you to stop. And then when I say stop, stop, and the earthquake stopped. Then he sent another one a few weeks later, and it shook 7.1. And then he lined up Hurricane Jose. And after Hurricane Jose, he said, go, Hurricane Jose. Hurricane Jose went, blew up the place, turned it out, right? And then he said, stop. Then he said, Hurricane Maria, your turn to go. And we sitting here trying to figure out, I've never seen anything like this before. It's got to be something going on in the world. Yes, God is on the throne. He's giving the command to the winds. When we get to chapter 8 of Revelation, it says that he commanded the four winds, the angels at the four corners of the earth, to hold back the wind. You try holding the wind. Only God can hold and tell the angels to hold the wind. And that's who I want sitting on the throne. Who can make wind stop going. One who can walk on water. He controls what he creates. We're going to go home in a minute, but you just can't help but get excited when you talk about our God and what he's capable of doing. That's why it does not bother me when I look at what's happening in the world. I've come to this place in my life where I've gotten to the place where God will take care of me. Oh, I don't have time to lose sleep because you got Kim over there in Korea. You got Trump in Washington. You got somebody else in Mexico. You got somebody, Putin in Russia. I'm not tripping over them. Because just like God took life from Mussolini, Hitler, Nimrod, Nebuchadnezzar, and all of them, God will take life from whoever. Don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to talk about anybody in a negative sense, because God let them get there for promotion. Coming neither from the east, nor the west, nor the north, nor the south. For God promotes one, and he sets down another. That's what God does, because he's in control of everything. That's the God that sits on the throne, everybody. So let's watch our rhetoric when we start posting stuff on Facebook, acting like we don't know who's in control of this stuff. Stop talking about that madness and say, you know what, but my God is in the heavens, and he has done whatsoever he pleases. Start living and talking about like you know the God was on the throne. Quit acting like he's evil, he running around trying to figure out what to do. I don't know how to control this sinful man. No, I'm sorry. As the old timers say, he's one that can speak and men will live. He's the one that can speak and men will say men will lay down and die. God's in control of everything. And it took him to take John up to heaven so he could see what it's like and tell us what's going on. Oh, I told you it would be done in a minute, I will. Notice this, the throne was set positionally in heaven. It was always there. And notice what he saw. And one sat on the throne. Man, ruling and reigning. He didn't say it was God the Father. He said one sat. And I'm quite sure if you keep reading the chapter, it's not a human being that's sitting on that throne. Because angels are not going to cast their crown. I mean, the church age believers are not going to cast their crowns at another human being. They're going to cast their crowns. We're going to cast our crowns at the one who's worthy to receive glory, honor, because he created all things. Oh, I'll tell you about that casting crowns a little later on. But we got to understand some things. Our God is in the heavens, and he hath done whatsoever he pleases. When you look at this and you see what's going on here, he said, now notice the brilliance in verses 3 and 4. And he said, and he that sat was to look upon like a jasper and a sardine stone. And there was a rainbow round about the throne in sight, like unto an emerald.
Yes.
Wow, this is so full of richness when you look at what he's saying. When he was saying this, it's important for us to see something. He talks about a jasper, and by the one that sat was to look upon, to see. He had the appearance like a jasper stone. Now, Revelation 21 and 11 talks about the jasper stone being as clear as crystal. And so in the language of that day, it gives the picture of our diamond, which we know now. And when a diamond is cut right, it refracts all of the colors of the spectrum. Now imagine John's vision, looking, the one sitting on the throne, and the colors coming through this clear. Colors being refracted through him, just brilliantly shining, hitting him in his eyes. That's why flesh and blood couldn't see that now. Oh, you know, we'd get burned up if we looked at something like that now. Oh, we could never see anything like that in this state we're in. But yet, there's coming a day. And so John saw that. He saw that clear, the one sitting there, just brilliance of light. And guess what? He's light, because it says over in Revelation 21 or 22, it says that there will be no sun nor moon, because it's going to be lit up by him. You can tell the sun, you're done. Moon, you're done. He said, I got this now. And guess what? All of God's people will see him just as he is. As a matter of fact, Jesus even showed us a glimpse of his glory when he took Peter, James, and John up on the Mount of Transfiguration. And the Bible says he began to shine like the sun. He peeled back his flesh and said, this is what I look like before I came into you. I took upon this so I can help you. But one day you're going to see me just like I was. And you're going to see me in all my glory at that point. When you look at this and you see this right here, he says not only that, the jasper stone and the sardine stone is a brilliant ruby red that he was seeing. Now these in the high priest's breastplate. The sardine stone is listed first. And that's each tribe had a precious stone. And the first stone, Reuben, was the jasper stone. And it meant firstborn son, my son, born a son, right? And then the other sardine or sardius stone was the first stone in there, and then it's in reverse order. Where the jasper was the last stone, and then the first stone was the sardine stone. And what they represent is that one represented the tribe of Benjamin. And Benjamin, his name means son at my right hand. Oh, but when you put the two together, who is the unique, one and only Son of God, Jesus Christ himself. And then who's at the Father's right hand? When he ascended on high, he sat down at the right hand of the majesty. It gives picture, and when you look at all of this put together, right here, he's sitting on the throne in brilliant glory. And yet he's not missing anything that happens on earth. That's why I oftentimes say, I'm so glad you could be in your house praying to God. And he's not so busy with you that he can't answer my prayer at the same time. Oh, the Lord will be praying in his house. And James Johnson and Douglas Bethea and Kenny Harrison and Dr. Bogalusa, Louisiana. I'm sorry. And Donnie and Greg and excuse me for using their first names and Jeff and all these people. We can all be praying in other parts of the world at the same time. And the one sitting on the throne can answer you, and all of us at the same time. And never miss a beat. He can tell me no. He can tell you I'm going to do it, but I'm not going to do it right now. He can tell you right now it's coming to you. He can tell you sit down and be quiet and get some things straight. And I'll deal while keeping the sun shining, making it rain on another part of the earth, keeping the animals fed, keeping you and I from getting in trouble on the freeway when we pick up our phone to see who texts us. He can do it all right things. And none of his glory ever diminishes because he's on the throne. Here's where it gets even better, everybody. He says, and round about the throne, where God is governing, there are 24 seats, other thrones, for the redeemed. Now, there's much debate. Some people say that they're angelic beings, but nowhere in Scripture does it say angels sit with Christ.
That's right. That's right.
Okay? Some say that it's the Old Testament saints. But yet, the Old Testament, or the the saints of Israel, that they have not been redeemed yet as a nation.
Right. Right.
I hold to the fact from chapter 5, where he dealt with the fact that he's made, that he dealt with the fact in verses, verse 14 and some other, and we'll deal with it later, and how he dealt with us and made us a kingdom and priests, okay? And how he shed his blood for us, okay? And so that's the church age. Now I hold that it's the church age believers. And 24 is a representative number because in Israel they had 24 orders of priests.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah.
And during David's and Solomon's time, they had upwards of 1,000 priests. And not all of them could serve at the same time. So the number 24 in biblical numerology represents priesthood.
Yeah.
And yet, when you look at this, this is a representative number of church age believers.
All right.
And around the throne, you have the throne exalted up here, and then you have the 4 living creatures all around and praising God all the time. Then you have the 24 elders, that's the representative of the church age believers around the throne. And all this is going on in heaven while God is controlling stuff on earth. And then it says right here in verse 4, it says, and round about the throne were 24 seats. And upon the seats I saw 24 elders, or 24 elders, sitting, clothed in white raiment, representative of purity, right? That ones that have been, redeemed by the blood of the Lamb, and they had on their heads crowns of gold. Now the crown that it's talking about is not the diadem crown. That's what God uses for himself. He has a diadem. The Lord has a diadem. That's a kingly crown. These are Stephanos crowns. And they were used in the Olympic Games. When one would win, they would put a wreath and they put it on. It was called the victor's crown. And guess what? He that overcometh. Didn't he say that? To him I will grant to sit with me. Didn't he say that to one of the churches? And so we are victors because of what Christ did. He is our super conqueror. And so therefore, every believer is going to heaven. And we're going to sit at his throne, around his throne. And we're going to worship him. Didn't say anything about Revelation about walking around heaven all day. I'm sorry, I know that disappoints some people. When I get to heaven, we talk about what we're going to do, right? I'm going to sing and shout. Yeah, you will. But quit predicting something you have no clue about. So we just going to walk around. People talk about, when I get to heaven, I'm going to see my mom. Amen. Like we're just going to get there and you hook up. Let's hook up. We're going to hook up in heaven. We're going to have one big barbecue in heaven. Just like the old times. We're going to do like we did on the 4th of July. We're going to call Pookie and Day Day. We're going to fire the grill in heaven. like here. You're not going to go to MLK Park in Eternal Glory on Hollywood Boulevard. Or 405 Park on Mercy Avenue. Or Ocean View Park on Grace Street. It won't be none of that, okay? You won't be going to Balboa Park over on. Because God is on the throne. There's more to follow, everybody. So join me in taking a journey to heaven this week, okay? All right? All right. God bless you. Please don't be offended when I say something. I have to dispel some myths that we have. You know, we got some stuff that we say that's not biblically sound. Okay? I like the song Walk Around There. It's still what you sing this song. Okay? But don't nobody go out here thinking about as soon as we get there, we're just going to start walking around heaven. And we get at the end, walk, walk, walk. You know, we start doing that all throughout the song. Don't think that that's all that there is. Because I heard one young guy say, is that all we're going to do? I said, what would you rather do? Would you rather be the other place? And then if that was the case, yes. I do want to walk. Understand? Extend unto you the invitation to discipleship. Come with Jesus. Jesus made it possible for you and I to go be with Him and the Father in heaven. He came and He died on the cross. He rose from the dead. He got up from the grave, sealing the victory of what He went through and dying on the cross. Because if Christ never got up from the dead, there would never be any hope for salvation. Because His work would be null and void. But He got up because the tomb is empty. His victory for everyone who places their soul, their hearts towards Jesus. Is there one who would come?